Tonight on Dr. Phil Primetime. America's education system is in a state of crisis. Around 40% of our fourth graders are struggling to read at even a basic level.
There's a whole generation of teachers who were incorrectly or improperly trained.
When you opened that book and you couldn't comprehend it, what did you say to yourself?
I told myself I was just kind of dumb.
Sarah is a former teacher who had a revelation that will leave you speechless. If you haven't heard, America's education system is in a state of crisis. We're talking about a country that's supposed to be a leader in innovation and progress. But when it comes to education, we are lagging way behind. The latest figures show that around 40% of our fourth graders can't read at a basic level, the highest percentage since 2002. That's right, just under half of our fourth graders aren't proficient in reading. We're spending more money on education than most countries, but we're still falling short.
The Department of Education's a big con job. They rank the top 40 countries in the world. We're ranked number 40th. That means something's really wrong.
Much of the country is facing a child literacy crisis. Just 1 in 3 fourth graders was at or above proficiency in reading last year, with nearly 4 in 10 performing below basic level. The balanced literacy theory, an approach used in some classrooms nationwide for over 2 decades. Rather than learning to sound out letter combinations, also called phonics, teachers focused on what's known as cueing, instructing children to use context and other clues to figure out words.
They weren't actually reading the letters, they weren't reading the words, they were guessing.
We realized very quickly that students weren't acquiring the skills to actually sound out words, decode words, spell words. They weren't actually learning to read.
And let's not forget the impact of the pandemic. We shut down schools for over a year, 2 years in many cases, creating gaps in education that we're still trying to close. It's no wonder our children are demotivated and getting left behind. Look, you know I'm not one to sugarcoat things, so here's the raw truth. Our schools are like trying to fit every child into the same pair of shoes. One size does not fit all. We're teaching to the middle, leaving the gifted children bored out of their minds and the struggling ones just behind in the dust. And don't even get me started on what these children are learning, or should I say not learning. We've got graduates walking out of high school who cannot read. I've been sounding an alarm on this issue for a long time, apparently not loud enough. I was in public schools, and they kind of geared the curriculum to the least.
I actually disagree with what you said around the idea now of teaching to the least. We actually have to teach to the middle. We've seen a
Well, I'm going to disagree right back, because when I went to school, of course, we were chipping things in stone tablets then. They were gearing to the least. Now they're trying to hit the middle.
Yes.
It's indicative of our school system that we don't see kids as whole humans, and that's how the system is set up.
You think public school doesn't listen to children?
Correct.
Well, I've been talking to my panel of experts and parents today about their thoughts on how public school curriculum should be handled.
Every student should feel as though they and their family are protected and respected in that classroom.
I absolutely agree, but I'm going to also bring up another problem, and that's the problem of misinformation.
There's a policy at schools. It's called the parental secrecy policy. And by having that policy, our children are very unprotected.
After the parents, the next best adult a student should go to for advice, for help, is the teacher or the guidance counselor.
For 26 years, I've been heralding teachers, but they know what they know, and I'm aware of only a few teaching curriculums in preparing these teachers to be uniquely qualified to handle this sort of challenge.
You're right. Misinformation, giving the wrong information is worse than giving no information at all. And teachers not being trained is a bigger issue.
You say K through 12 has just collapsed.
Correct.
What do you mean by that?
These students don't even know the very basics of American government. It's across the board. It's in every subject.
Clearly, our education system is not working the way it should. We need real solutions, not just Band-Aids. So tonight, we're going to dive into the heart of this crisis and explore what's really going on in our schools and specifically why our students can't read. Sarah is a former teacher who had a revelation that will leave you speechless. After dedicating nearly 2 decades to teaching 3rd grade, she discovered a shocking truth. The method she had been using for years was not helping her students become proficient readers. But here's the kicker. Her own children started struggling with reading. Well, Sarah's joining us tonight. Sarah, thank you so much for being here. This is really intriguing to me. Tell me about when you first noticed your oldest son had issues with reading.
Sure. It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me. Like you said, I was trained in balanced literacy methods. I went to the University of Michigan, graduated at the top of my class, found a job out in Massachusetts, and started teaching 3rd grade. All was well. I even took a step further. I got a master's degree in literacy and reading. And so I felt really well prepared to teach reading. So when my oldest, Nolan, was in school, he was put in a small reading group. I think in about 1st grade, we got a letter sent home that said, Nolan could use a little extra help. We're going to see him, 3 to 4 times a week for 30 minutes. Do I agree? And of course I agreed. I really wanted what was best for my child, my son. And I said, this sounds like a great idea. Interestingly enough, it really mirrored the type of instruction that I was doing. I taught in the same district that Nolan was going to school in. So I felt really confident that he was going to be in good hands and he was going to learn how to read. So time went on, a year, 2 years, he's still in this small reading group. And, around 3rd grade, which was the grade I taught, I felt like something was just missing for him. He just wasn't confident. He wasn't really interested in reading outside of school. And that's when I really pushed to have him evaluated for an individual education plan.
Listen, I want to make a big deal out of what you just said because sadly, most parents wouldn't do what you did. The truth is, most parents don't know to ask for that evaluation. They're not that informed, vigilant, diligent. Doesn't mean they don't love their children, but they're not inside baseball like you are. You knew what to ask for, you knew what to do, and this will help parents know they can do that. What did you learn when you asked for that evaluation?
Well, it's interesting. At that point, I actually really didn't know. I had sort of a mother's intuition, and I do tell parents to trust your gut. You just know when something isn't right. And at that point, I really was still teaching using balanced literacy. I was cueing kids to, does it look right? Does it sound right? And does it make sense? Those were things I was asking my 1st graders, my 2nd graders I was teaching in small groups to do, rather than really sound out the words. Of course, there was some phonics. It's not like balanced literacy has no phonics instruction. But so I still wasn't really clear on what was missing with Nolan, but I think it was my gut. So I had him tested, and it turns out when I looked at his assessments in a lot of the basic reading skills, he was below average. So I knew enough then that he needed some specialized support, but I think I didn't really realize that he really wasn't learning disabled. He just had a lack of appropriate instruction that really helped build that reading circuit in the brain. It's when my daughter, his younger sister, was working with me during COVID. So Nolan was older by then. I was still using these methods of balanced literacy, and it was 1st grade. Her school shut down, and I said, what better opportunity? I am a teacher. I have a master's degree. I have a willing student, and I sat her down. We had our little guided reading books. After 3 weeks, daily instruction, a lot of instruction, she had really not progressed at all. She had just memorized the books. And I think Nolan, coupled with my daughter, made me realize, well, I think it's the teaching method. I think there's something that I'm doing wrong. And that was really difficult to think back to all the students I'd worked with, to chalk up to saying, well, obviously it's their fault or their parents aren't reading to them. I mean, I feel terrible at the things I thought. And I came to that revelation after watching my daughter really go through structured literacy at Orton Gillingham, to really make that progress.
Okay, boy, you and I need to talk about a lot of stuff. Man, oh man, we've got to take a break. Coming up, Sarah says her son struggled with reading from the start, but the school solution wasn't enough, and we're going to add him to this conversation when we come back. When you opened that book and you couldn't comprehend it, what did you say to yourself?
Kind of just like, why can't I read this? You know, all the people around me can, so why can't I?
And how did you answer that?
So we know balanced literacy is a disaster, especially for dyslexic learners. What's the alternative? Structured literacy, which is a term coined by the International Dyslexia Association. Really, really key element is the use of decodable, not predictable texts. Less emphasis is placed on discovery, so we give kids quick feedback about their errors. And some of them who weren't going to learn at all with balanced literacy, now they can.
Well, that was one teacher's opinion about how the balanced theory of reading has been failing students, especially those who struggle with reading. Now, Sarah spent nearly 20 years teaching children to read until she realized the methods that she was using were just not working, including with her own son, Nolan. Now 17, Nolan still struggles with spelling and writing despite years of school intervention. Sarah, there is a science to teaching, clearly. First, in evaluating what the student needs, there's a science to that.
Right.
Knowing how to bring them what they need, there's a science to that. And when you recognize that wasn't being met by the method that you were using, and it was what was being offered in the school, you actually quit.
I did. And, you know, I think about that a lot because there's a bit of privilege that comes with that, to quit a job, to quit a source of income, to seek an alternative job, to seek alternative training, to really pour thousands of dollars into my own education, to become certified in Orton Gillingham, to literally, you know, immerse myself in the science of reading, podcasts, articles. And I really was able to do that. And I really did quit because I had a conversation with school officials, and they told me I couldn't do Orton Gillingham in my reading groups. And from there, that really told me that, what are we talking about here? We're talking about children learning to read. And if we know that there's methods that are effective, a teacher should be able to utilize them. And so for me, it was that turning point, and I was able to become the co-director of Crafting Minds Group, and we really work closely with teachers, with school districts for really on-the-job training, practical resources for developing teachers' knowledge that they may not have gotten in college, just like me.
And right now, we're in a situation where in the last bit of time, about a year, there have been 400,000 uncertified teachers hired and put into the school system. No training, no lesson plan training, no curriculum training, no diagnostics for students and what they need, absolutely no training in how to put together a lesson plan, curriculum, how to help students. 400,000 teachers, some of them with GEDs and 20 hours of sub-license training. Is it any wonder that we're falling apart? That we're sliding down the ladder?
Yeah, and I think it goes back further because I think you look at a whole generation of teachers who are my age in our 40s, and you know, you look at great universities, University of Michigan. You know, my textbook was all about balanced literacy. I can picture it today. It was written by Lucy Calkins. It was written by Fountas and Pennell. And so there's this whole generation of teachers who were incorrectly or improperly trained. Not everyone, of course. And here we are facing this crisis, and I think teachers are up in arms. They're not sure what to do, right? If you've ever taught, it's incredibly hard. It's challenging. You are busy from the second you walk in the door till the second you leave. It's really difficult to take an opportunity and figure out, what are you going to get trained in? Who's going to pay for it? How are you going to find time? And I do think teachers are leaving by the droves because it's really challenging to provide that practical professional development that they can move the needle for the kids at hand. And that's what I see happening.
You saw it affecting your son, Nolan, who's joining us now. Nolan, thank you for being here. When did you first realize that you were having difficulty with reading?
So I realized pretty early on in and when I was in elementary school. So it was right around second grade where, you know, every Friday morning, a student could pick out a book on the class shelf and they would read it aloud to the class. And so I picked out a book that I thought I would like. It was a sports book. And I opened the first page and I just couldn't read. I immediately stopped, tried to look at the picture, couldn't understand it and couldn't do it. And that's when I really noticed after some time that and after seeing all my other students that I was just well behind.
Yeah, and let me ask you something. When you opened that book and you couldn't comprehend it, what did you say to yourself?
Kind of just like why can't I read this? You know, all the people around me can, so why can't I?
And how did you answer that?
I just kind of told myself that I was just kind of dumb, than other students around me.
That's just, that's terrible. I'm so sorry that you've had that experience, because you don't deserve that. And that makes an impression, and an impression that sticks with you. And how have you felt as you've dug your way out of this? I know that you still aren't where you want to be, but you're certainly making progress. Have you figured out that this isn't you, that there are things that should have been done that weren't, and that there are things happening now?
Yeah, I do. I think just kind of, I really like where I'm at right now and kind of the support that I received later on, but that was more in middle school, and I just like where I'm at right now, and there's still more for me to do. There's still more for me to learn. I can still get better at a lot of things, like reading's especially one of them. So I'm excited to see what's to come.
Okay, I want you to stay with us, and we'll be right back. Sarah, I understand why you had such a reaction and changed what you were doing. Have you ever had second thoughts about standing up and saying, I'm not going to continue to do something I know isn't working?
It used to be you walk into a fifth grade classroom and you see a range of 4th to 6th, right? COVID blew that out the water. And now in any given class, there's this academic gap that's just unfair. And you walk into a room and teachers are trying to, you're at a kindergarten math level, you're 8th grade over here, and it's just an unrealistic challenge to solve. And it's not a teacher problem, it's not the student problem. That model is archaic.
Well, we're back with Sarah and her son, Nolan. Now, Sarah has been a teacher all of her life, still is. She's doing it in a different way than she did for a long time, but she's still teaching and actually helping teachers to teach. And her son, Nolan, she discovered was really having trouble with literacy. And I just asked Nolan what he said to himself when he discovered that, unlike a lot of other students, he couldn't read and comprehend a book. And Nolan, I said to you, I'm really sorry that you had that experience. And it has a big impact on young people. We know that low literacy puts young people at risk for all kinds of negative outcomes in their life, in terms of employment and earnings and prison and all sorts of things, whereas high literacy changes everything. So it's worth continuing to work at this. And Sarah, I understand why you had such a reaction and changed what you were doing. Have you ever had second thoughts about standing up and saying, I'm not going to continue to do something I know isn't working?
No, I have not had second thoughts. I think looking at my children, just as you said, to have children and to have them feel like they're stupid, they're dumb, something's wrong with them, even more so with my daughter, because she was dyslexic and really couldn't read. It was really troublesome. I've always felt like, I'm a mother first, teacher second, and I think it's really important to be able to stand up, speak about what you value, what you care about. And I look at where I am now. and really working hard to impact lots of different teachers who then impact additional children. And I hope that the reach continues to broaden.
We've got almost a third of fourth graders, a third of eighth graders, almost 20% of high school graduates that cannot read at a functional level. And most of them, a lot of them, have been under this balance of literacy program. Should parents be up in arms about this? Because the school district has to know that this program, any other program in private industry, if they had a plan, if they had a program, this wouldn't be acceptable. They wouldn't continue with it. The U.S. Department of Education, if you look at nationwide reading scores, 19% of high school graduates can't read. We're ranked 34th in math, 9th in reading internationally, and in 2023 school year, 50% of students were below grade level. I mean, how can they continue to perpetuate this? I mean, should parents not be up in arms about this?
I mean, I think it's complex. Like, balanced literacy is a philosophy of teaching, right? It was a philosophy, and there's programs that adhere to this. And it sounds good. Do a little of this, a little of that. And I think the issue is districts have a finite limit of funds. They purchase curriculum, they train teachers in it, and then they implement it. And all of this takes time, effort. And, working with school districts at system level change, I can see how challenging it is. But I do think when districts take the bull by the horn, they recognize there's a problem, they create a strategic plan. Change can be a little slow. I can honor that. I can understand that because, it is a large organization, many school districts. But at the very heart of it, you have to recognize that there are better methods. It starts with screening. It starts with, understanding the data, looking at students, where they fall, targeting instruction. But it also is, it's broad because I worry that districts will just slap on another program. And, a lot of publishers are coming out with science of reading. You look at them, there's some good elements, but you really have to have highly trained teachers who can get through the different elements and programs and determine what's effective, how are they going to utilize this, and that takes a strategic plan. So I think parents are up in arms. I live in a town where parents have been advocating for, I think, 4 to 5 years now, and the district is still holding on to curriculum. So change is slow. And so it's disheartening to see.
And it may be dinosauric, and it may be big, but it's also Nolan. It's also your daughter.
Yeah,
and I don't care how big it is. It's Nolan, it's your daughter, and change is possible. It needs to be made. And if it isn't made, they're spending ghastly amounts of money on this. I mean, millions and millions of dollars, and it's not working.
I know, and
what am I missing?
I do agree with you. I think it takes a strong leader in the school district. It takes adherence at the top. It takes buy-in with people who make decisions. There are lots of teachers who are trying to do this work, but it is really hard to create system change when you're one teacher in one classroom. It's really challenging. You have to have concerted, efforts to train, if you're purchasing new curriculum, to vet it, to put it into practice. I've seen it done. I work with districts in Massachusetts who are doing a phenomenal job. And I agree with you. It is a problem. And I do think it's helpful when parents advocate, but a lot of parents are scared. They're frightened. They feel like if they speak up, their child's going to be, signaled out. I definitely felt that. Yeah, they're going to pay the price.
And Nolan, is it worth the fight?
Yeah, I think it is worth the fight. Because everyone just deserves to read. So I do think it is worth the fight. And my mom's done a great job with that.
Well, I think so too. And what are you fighting towards, Sarah? What is it you think should happen?
I think at this district level, administrators need to understand that it comes down to teacher training. They need to help teachers understand how the brain learns to read, that reading is not natural. From there, we need to understand how learning happens and how we can align that with screening. We can use screening to determine deficits, and then we can employ proven strategies and curricula that allow kids to learn to read. We can check in on their progress and determine if they need additional support. So there's no excuse. The system, multi-tiered system of support, should be alive and well in school districts across the country. There's plenty of resources. We offer plenty at Crafty Minds, and there's lots of free resources for districts, but it takes a commitment. It takes a commitment from the district leaders all the way down to your school personnel who are helping kids in intervention, all the way down and along with the parents. And I think that's the approach there that would work.
Well, I asked because I do have some influence on this, and I want input. Coming up, a veteran principal discusses how our current approach to teaching reading is failing a significant number of children, and he'll share his insights next.
I've been teaching for 17 years. The kids can't read, not like they used to. And this is not all kids, but for the most part, they can't read. It's this circle of apathy and exhaustion. We need the parents' support. It's a much bigger problem we need to solve.
Well, that's a veteran teacher calling attention to the overwhelming number of students who can't read. Now, Dr. Kevin Williams has been the principal at Norwood Elementary in Miami Gardens, Florida for 16 years. His school district has long used a balanced literacy approach, but he's taken it a step further, integrating the science of reading to better support struggling readers. Dr. Williams, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on tonight, Dr. Phil.
Well, Dr. Williams, why do you think there is a decline in literate students across the country? Because we're just not doing well.
Well, part of that issue is, of course, the approach that we're using for students and how we teach them in the reading process. So one of the things that we're using in our school, we've blended some things to make this happen for our students to have more success.
Right. And you say that balance of literacy, there are good elements to it, but that it has time constraints. What do you mean?
Okay, well, with the balance approach, it's really for students who already have phonics and the basic things that they need for reading. Those students who struggle with reading won't do well with that approach. So the approach needs to be more from a standpoint of individualized based on the particular student needs. And so we can't there's no cookie cutter approach where it works for every student.
All right, can the two of you, and you guys can kind of work together to help our viewers here, differentiate for us the difference between the two approaches, between the balance of literacy, which deals with, context, and just differentiate between the two for us.
Well, the science of reading deals a lot with phonics, phonemic awareness, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. And when you look at the balanced approach, it's more whole group. It's not as much phonics. And if students don't know the phonics, it's almost impossible for them to be able to read.
But there wasn't that differentiation in using the balance of literacy. It was one size fits all.
Correct.
In applying it to all students, those who were not advanced and those who were, they were kind of all put in that same situation.
Right. So it's just cookie cutter. Everybody's just thrown together. Everybody is supposed to just learn, where every student is an individual. And so the science of reading allows us to see every individual's student's need and then teach from that based on data and information from diagnostic assessments and things of that sort, and not just students guessing words and using clues, but actually learning letters and their sounds and systematically teaching it.
Sarah, what would you add to differentiate the two?
I look at the science of reading to think about really, we can look at the most predictive skills that are necessary for early reading. So when we think about that, we can look at what research and evidence says about how children learn to read. And like I've said before, we have to build the reading circuit. You are not born with the capacity to read. You don't have neurons to do that job. Teachers have to build the reading circuit in every single person. The problem is, for some kids, it looks easy. I have a middle son who we haven't talked about, poor Leo. Leo could have been put in the closet, probably read a little bit, immersed in language, and he is a reader. he was a reader. I have 2 other children who required much more systematic and explicit instruction. So I think if we, and the problem is, if we don't come at teaching reading with the idea that reading is not natural, we allow for incidental instruction to take place. To me, our pants should be on fire in kindergarten and first grade, helping children understand the sounds in the language. Language is made up of sounds. We can match those letters to sounds. We can blend those sounds to form words, and then we can practice reading those words. That's how we build that automaticity with reading, right? We need to develop that visual word form area in every child's brain so that when they come to a word, they don't have to guess. They don't always have to tap it out. They can use that automaticity that they've mapped of that word. So I look at it as really coming from that perspective that we need to start with that children need that instruction. It's explicit, it's systematic, it's cumulative, right? And I think science of reading, the body of research known as the science of reading, some of the arguments are that it's boring, it's kill and drill. And when I hear people say that, I really do know they've never really understood how to teach children the code, because I run groups many times throughout my career. I'm still running reading groups when I'm modeling, and I really don't think children are bored. They are eager to learn, and children want to learn to read. We can't foster this love of reading until we teach kids how the whole system works.
Yeah, it opens up a whole different world for them. Okay, up next, an education expert says literacy rates are dropping, and it's not by accident. So why bad policies, not our students, are to blame? We're going to discuss that when we come back.
How soon do you want the Department of Education to be closed?
Oh, I'd like it to be closed immediately.
The president says he wants the Department of Education closed immediately. There are no plans that we have heard of for that to happen. Obviously, he is called to abolish it, and he signed executive orders last week that are essentially carried out by the Department of Education. It's not clear what that would look like in Title IX. For example, if the Education Department was shut down. So it's one of those things that he has long said he wants to do.
Well, that was President Trump making it very clear how he feels about the Department of Education. Now, Angela Morabito is a former press secretary for the U.S. Department of Education under the first Trump administration. She says the way we teach reading in public schools is setting students up to fail. Angela, thank you for joining us. As a former press secretary for DOE, what are your thoughts on these declining literacy rates for students across the country? You've heard me talk about them. We've got 50% of our students that don't read fluently. Certainly 4th, 8th graders are not doing well.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me, because we're at a really pivotal moment in education. And one thing we know for sure is that the current system is a failure. The Department of Education is a failed experiment that costs taxpayers billions every year and fails at its core mission of teaching students to read, write, and do math. Of course, the department itself isn't supposed to teach them, but it's supposed to foster educational excellence in the states. Part of the issue here, look, I served in the Department of Education during COVID, and one of the things that we tried to make really clear to people is that they needed to go back to school, but they couldn't go back to normal, because for so many millions of kids, back to a normal at their school meant back to incompetence. These schools were not doing what they should. You've got teacher unions that have done everything they can to get rid of any measure of accountability, including testing that flags students who need help. In the couple of states that did okay on the nation's report card this past go-round, namely Louisiana and Mississippi, they had some things in common. First off, they've embraced the science of reading. And second, they catch struggling readers quickly so they can get them the help that they need.
Well, to me, finding them is so critical. But then you've got to have some plan once you find them. And, to me, that's the problem. Dr. Williams is talking about using the best of both worlds, tailoring it to the students. And we've got to come up with a plan. And I want to hear all three of you talk about what that plan needs to be when we come back. Last year, the Department of Education received $268 billion. But our students received bad test scores. It seems to me, how is that possible? I've talked to the president about this myself, and he says, look, we spend more money than any nation, any developed nation, and we come in last. So where is the money going? Part of that answer is we've had a lot of administrators added, but not a lot of teachers. Maybe that's part of the problem. I'll talk about that when we come back. Between the year 2000 and 2019, the increase in administrators went up 87.6%. The increase in teachers went up 8.7%. Our students' performance continued to go down. So we got a lot of people in the front office running the show, but not a lot of people working with the students. Not a big increase there. So let me ask the three of you, why is that the case? We have a 10-to-1 increase in administrators to teachers, and our student performance is going down like a rock. How do you justify that?
I don't think it can be justified. I would say one thing I've noticed that there's a decline in the number of people who are going into the field of education, and primarily because of all that is now being required of teachers and things that teachers need to learn. And there's not a lot of proper training for people who try to go into education, even when it comes to the science of reading. I just was fortunate enough to connect with someone who was able to provide some training to my primary teachers to incorporate in our school. But a lot of people, again, are not going into education as they used to.
Well, we've got 400,000 teachers that are uncertified that have been hired and put in classrooms. How about we get some of those administrators off of their penguin butts and put them into classrooms and get them to teach? What are they administrating? How can we go up 10-to-1 while our students are failing? I'm sorry. It just doesn't make sense to me. Somebody explain this to me. I'm very frustrated with this. Really frustrated with it. Angela, help me out.
Sure, I can chime in here. So administrative bloat is not just an accident that happened over time. It's very much on purpose. A lot of it has been driven by teacher unions that actually bargain into their contracts with different school districts. They'll say, you have to hire this many administrators, even though they may rarely see the inside of the classroom. And when they do, they're not helping students learn. You've also got administrative bloat up at the very top, at the federal level. I saw it myself when I served in the Department of Education. So this is something that has snowballed over time. There are administrators whose job is just looking after other administrators. It's ridiculous. And honestly, a lot of the COVID relief money that was supposed to help ameliorate learning loss was actually used to fund permanent positions with temporary funds. That funding has expired, it's gone away. But now you've got school districts complaining we can't afford our payroll, we can't afford our administrators because they used funds that they knew weren't going to last forever.
Sarah, what do we do with all of that?
You know, I work with certain school districts. I don't work at the Department of State level and things like that, but I do think there's value in administrators. There's certainly value in teachers. And I really think it's helpful to understand, determine the root cause. What is the root cause? That's what we're talking about today. I don't know if it's administrator bloat. I really think about what comes down to it is, yes, administrators play a strong role in implementing the policies and curriculum and how things work. They hire the teachers to provide the support. I do think we have to look at higher education. We think about what colleges and universities are doing to prepare teachers. And I read a report recently, I think many of them still had failing grades and not preparing teachers in this science of reading. We've known about the science of reading for decades. I'm a product of a great university who didn't learn it. So I really think it's more than just looking at, budgets and bloat and really looking at the root cause, which potentially can go back to looking at teacher training.
Well, I got to comment on that when we come back. Well, I'm back, and we're talking about what I consider to be a failing educational system. Sarah, I thought that was a very political answer, very adept answer. Let me just ask you straight up, do you think the Department of Education should be dismantled and taken to the state level?
I think I worry about what will happen to federal, protection about children. I think about my own children on ed plans. I worry about funding. I worry about Title I funding. So I think it's really hard to just globally say, I think this should be dismantled or this should happen. I think there needs to be a close look at what's happening, oversight into how these things play out. What are we testing? How are we testing? Who's accountable? And I think, again, I always go to that root cause. What is the root cause of failure? How do we work backwards? How do we determine solutions that's going to be effective in promoting literacy and encouraging literacy rates across the country?
But you won't criticize a 10-to-1 ratio between administrator and teacher increase over 20 years. Okay, gotcha. All right, Dr. Williams, what do you think, state or federal?
I mean federal because my school, 50% of my students are students with disabilities. And so a lot of what we provide to them comes from those funds. And I believe that for those students who struggle, especially again with being a school with a high population of students with disability, we need that funding to even implement science of reading and have the additional resources we need to train our teachers in the Arthur Gilliam. Again, I was just fortunate to connect with a program called the Lucy Project that allowed us to be able to do it. But I think we have to have that federal funding to continue our progress.
All right. Final comment is yours, Angela.
Thank you, Dr. Phil. I'm going to surprise no one here by saying I think the Department of Education needs to go. Because when we get this huge bureaucracy out of the way, we can actually send more federal education tax dollars to the states and to the districts. And I think we ought to use it to empower really thoughtful and creative parents and teachers like Sarah and great leaders like Dr. Williams. You guys are doing amazing things for students. I want to see that continue, but it's not going to happen when we have power concentrated at the federal level. Let's get rid of the Department of Ed.
All right. I'm going to invite all three of you back again to continue this conversation. I think every one of you have some brilliant insights to this, and I'm being very serious here because I think we have a big problem. So please, I invite all three of you back to talk about this some more. And I do want to thank all three of you, Sarah, her son Nolan, Dr. Kevin Williams, and Angela Morabito. So thank you guys for being here. For more information about tonight's episode, log on to merittv.com. We're out of time. Good night.